So if the show isn't doing anything new or different, or at least cranking the woke meter up so high the needle breaks off so I can have fun roasting the hell out of it, then I don't think there's anything remotely interesting about this series, good or bad. It's not good enough to be enjoyable, it's not bad enough to be funny, it's not memorable one way or the other. Ultimately, Batwoman is the worst thing a TV show can be. Forgettable. Remember this. Simpler times. More innocent times. I had no idea how bad it was going to get. I wish I could get these days back. The days when this show was just a mild annoyance not worth getting upset about, rather than the rage-inducing shitstorm it would soon become. A tsunami of infuriating, toxic bile driven by incompetent SJW hacks so god-awful that reviewing the most recent episode made the left side of my body go numb for a few minutes. I don't know how we got here. And why I'm still here is a question I'll probably be asking myself until the day I die. But I've come this far. I might as well cross the finish line. So for the last time this season, thank Christ, let's deep dive into Batwoman. Episode 20, Oh Mouse, begins with one of the former Arkham inmates. Now, Jacob blames Batwoman for being the cause of all these inmates escaping last week, even though the Crows arrived at Arkham before they escaped and somehow managed to not recapture a single one of them. So a couple episodes ago, when the show briefly toyed with the idea of the Crows being semi-competent, yeah, that's not a thing anymore. The Crows are back to being completely useless thugs who suck at everything because that's how we roll on Batwoman, baby. So this particular escapee, whose nickname is Titan, boards a train while brandishing a machete, it's anyone's guess where the hell he got something like that, and gruesomely kills a man. Was it a white man? Oh, you better believe it. He's then confronted by Jacob, who despite having a shotgun is easily defeated. Then Kate appears, and naturally puts up a much better fight than Jacob did, even though this man towers over her and must outweigh her by 150 pounds or more. But then, something incredible happens. You will never guess it in a million years. And that's not sarcasm, by the way, I'm dead serious. Titan overpowers Kate, defeats her, and escapes. Kate lost a fight. Let me repeat that so you'll be sure you're not hearing things. Kate lost a fight. To a man. I don't even know how to react to this. I've been wanting Kate to lose a fight for so long, and now that it's finally happened, suddenly I'm drawing a blank. Kate showing real vulnerabilities, being shown as less than a perfect paragon of amazingness, is something this show has desperately needed since it began, but the writers always refuse to let it happen. At least not without quickly retconning it away. So, I'm kind of blindsided here. And it won't be the only chink in Kate's armor that we see in this episode either. So, I have no idea what's going on right now, but you have my attention, show. Don't screw this up. So we cut to Alice and Mouse in the sewer. Mouse is freaking out that the Crows have some new app that would allow anyone in Gotham to report them in seconds, because people wouldn't be able to do that with a phone anyway for some reason. He thinks there's way too much heat on them and they need to get the hell out of Gotham while they still can, because Alice promised him that they would start a new life, but they can't do that when everyone's hunting them. So at this stage of the game, Mouse is all murdered out and wants nothing more than to f*** out of this godforsaken town once and for all and burn the bridge behind him. I certainly can't fault him for that. The problem with this is, once again, it's all telling and no showing. Supposedly, at some point while he was back in Arkham, Mouse either found some kind of peace or came to the decision that he didn't want all the violence and killing in his life anymore, But we, the audience, haven't seen that. We were never shown how or when Mouse made this revelation. It just happened like magic. A new episode starts, and suddenly Mouse is like, I don't want any more violence. I'm done, man. I just want to be happy. But what caused him to make this amazing breakthrough? Beats me, it happened off screen. Some vague explanation about Mouse enjoying having hot showers and 3 meals a day is not nearly enough for a development this big. We're told it happened, but the writers never showed us how it happened, so it feels completely inauthentic. In other words, it's just another bullshit development that only exists because the plot needs it to. So Alice is just stringing Mouse along now, still making him think that they're gonna leave, but not until she's happy and complete. And to do that, she needs Kryptonite, because Kryptonite can penetrate the Batsuit. Second verse, same as the first. Also, Tommy doesn't like the ass mask that Alice made for him. He wants to be better looking or something, so Alice strings him along too. He falls for it because he's a man and all men are idiots, and then she leaves to go see another man about a little green rock. Back in Bruce's office, Luke shows Kate the Kryptonite that Bruce had been keeping stored in the Batcave, where it would naturally be safe from anyone who wanted to steal it. You know, the Batcave. The place where Kate should have stored Lucius Fox's journal instead of just tossing it aside because she wanted to get laid, thus causing the journal to get stolen again? That place. Anyway, Luke is going to try to figure out how to destroy the Kryptonite, because once this rock is gone, Batwoman will be all but invincible. Unless somebody shoots her in the lower part of her face, which the Batsuit doesn't cover up, of course. But for some reason, that little detail goes completely unmentioned. And this is the only Kryptonite on Earth. Or so Luke thinks. Kate still has the chunk she kept as a Supergirl deterrent during the crossover, but she doesn't bother telling Luke about that. So just one episode after she supposedly realized how important Luke is to her, she's right back to keeping secrets from him like that never happened. Because while the Batsuit's one weakness is Kryptonite, Batwoman's one weakness is character growth. Then Mary walks in and exposits a bunch of stuff about Titan so Kate doesn't have to do any actual detective work. He was an amazing college football player who went so crazy on steroids that he ripped an official's spine out during a game. So football equals bad is the message they're conveying here, in case that was too subtle for you. Kate wants to go talk to Titan's little brother. Mary thinks she should lie low because Jacob has it out for Batwoman right now. He's had it out for Batwoman on and off for the entire season, and it amounted to nothing, so I don't know why we're supposed to think it's a big deal now, but it is. But Kate doesn't care. She thinks she can start changing Jacob's mind about Batwoman. You know, because Jacob's always been a very flexible, open-minded person. There is not one reason on Earth why Kate should think that this is even a remote possibility, since Jacob has been written as a stubborn, intractable asshole at the best of times who has never once entertained the possibility that Batwoman might not be a piece of human trash, and based on what we've seen this season, that's the most accurate assessment of Kate there could possibly be. But, from out of nowhere, Kate thinks that she can change his mind about Batwoman because that's what's in the script. Alice goes to see some geologist who had previously analyzed the Kryptonite, but after he had it, he gave it back to its owner, Lucius Fox. And Alice is like, what am I supposed to do? Just walk into Wayne and ask for it nicely? And one, she says this like she hasn't already walked into the Wayne building like it was the easiest thing in the world and gotten away scot-free before. And two, she's forgetting that she could just walk in there disguised with an ass mask. Which is weird because at the end of the episode, that is exactly her plan. So I really don't know why she's pissed off here. But she is, and then she kills the guy because evil. Back at the Batcave, Mary is worrying about Kate. Because if the show hadn't made it abundantly clear already, Kate is the center of Mary's entire goddamn universe. Luke is trying to figure out how to destroy the Kryptonite and getting nowhere, so Mary suggests that he just smash it. Luke thinks that's a dumb suggestion and doesn't take it seriously. So, of course, Mary's idea will be proven right by the end of the episode, because that's how this show works. So f*** the science guy, whose job it should be to solve problems like this. Mary's the one who figured out the Kryptonite, because being a woman automatically supersedes a genius intellect and an MIT education. I ask this in all seriousness. Why does Luke even exist? The show has no use for him whatsoever except manning the computers, but when he's not around, they just have someone else do that as we saw last week. so he's not exactly indispensable. The one role he had on the show was being the smart guy, but when any fill-in-the-blank female character can do that shit better than he can, you really have to wonder why the writers even keep this dude around. He's there for woke points, that's it. If there's any other reason, by all means point it out to me. So Batwoman goes to see Titan's brother at Gotham University. He doesn't know where to find Titan, but he does recite some spiel about how Titan was a good guy until the game turned him into a monster. Okay, football is the devil. Got it. Then Titan shows up and sticks a machete in the kid's back. He also fights Batwoman again, and I'm torn on how to feel about this. On the one hand, it's not a good fight. It's not well performed, the actor playing Titan moves very robotically, so it's incredibly obvious that he's just going through memorized choreography, and it's not shot or edited well enough to conceal that. This makes me think the fight sucks. On the other hand, he defeats Kate a second time. Kate loses another fight, and that makes me think the fight is awesome. So, take your pick. So Titan escapes again. Later on, the news lady is asking Jacob about Batwoman's efforts to help stop Titan, and Jacob is even more intractable than usual, names Batwoman as the root of all evil in the universe, and says that the Crows and the GCPD will bring Batwoman to justice, and they won't discriminate between Batwoman and anyone who helps her or even turns on the Bat Signal. And they really should, because turning on the Bat Signal is not a crime. What if the GCPD turned on the Bat Signal? It is on the roof of their building, after all. So, if that happened, would Jacob not discriminate between Batwoman and the cops? More to the point, why does no one seem to care what dangerous talk this is? Saying he won't discriminate between this person and that person? Well, the law says you do need to do that, Jacob, because some people are criminals and some people are not criminals. And most disturbingly of all, we're going to find out later that Jacob's plan is basically to kill Batwoman and anyone who helps her on sight regardless of whether those people are guilty of a crime or not. I know I've asked these questions plenty of times, but since the writers have never bothered to answer them, I will ask again. How the hell can Jacob legally do this? Why are the Crows allowed to kill whoever the hell they want? Why does no one on the show ever call attention to this? How the hell does the law work in this town? And most importantly of all, why the f*** is my rent so high that I have to keep watching this f***ing travesty? No answers. No answers to be found anywhere. Back at the Batcave, get this. Kate is injured. How? I don't have a goddamn clue. Kate has been shot and didn't feel it. Hit by a truck twice and walked it off both times. Had a bomb powerful enough to destroy a bank explode 20 feet from her, and it might as well have been a light breeze for all she cared. But she's injured now. Even though she was wearing the Batsuit, which Luke explained just a few minutes ago, makes her all but invincible, his words, not mine, unless you've got Kryptonite. But despite being all but invincible, despite it being canon that the Batsuit absorbs all impact, despite the show previously establishing Kate being pretty much immune to injury, somehow, someway, she's really banged up from a fight with a college football player. Damn sports. Giving men an outlet for their aggression and promoting toxic masculinity. When will the world learn? And before you say anything, yes, this is what I wanted. I wanted Kate to be able to get injured because her being indestructible all the time was boring, nonsensical, and really f***ing stupid. But all of a sudden, it's like the writers think they can just pick and choose when she's indestructible and when she's not. And in this case, they decided that she's not, mere minutes after telling the audience in no uncertain terms that the Batsuit makes Kate virtually invincible, so the whole thing feels like an ill-conceived load of crap. So Kate appears to have a dislocated shoulder and some cracked ribs. How did she get these injuries when previously the Batsuit was so impact-resistant that it might as well be magic? I don't f***ing know. Luke finds out that the guy Titan murdered on the train was a doctor or something who falsified student-athletes' brain scans. Which means that Titan is probably crazy. As if him screaming like a madman and running around with a machete wasn't enough to tip us off. Good contribution, Luke. Back to Alice and Mouse in the sewer. Mouse thinks they'll never get to the Kryptonite now, so they should just f*** it all and leave the city. And it's hard not to feel for him a little bit because he wants to be done with this show as badly as I do. He's like, why can't we just leave, Alice? Where does it all end? If there's a god, Mouse, cancellation. But Alice is not bending on this, so finally Mouse decides that f it, to hell with the plan, to hell with all this, he's donezo, he's getting out of here. Alice thinks it's hilarious that Mouse believes he could survive on his own, but when she sees how serious he is, he appears to get through to her because she doesn't want him to leave her alone. And she finally agrees to leave with him, but if they're leaving, they have to leave the right way. With a party. So Luke is poking around in Titan's medical records. Apparently his real brain scans were all kinds of f***ed up. Beats me why his real brain scans would still be on file after the doctor falsified them, but they are. Plus, the GU coach took an early retirement right before the scandal broke, and the coach is a white male, so he's clearly guilty as sin. Anyway, Kate wants to get back out there immediately. Mary and Luke both point out that this is a terrible idea because of how banged up she is, so for some reason the batsuit making her all but invincible doesn't count for much all of a sudden. Kate doesn't really give a shit about that, but then Mary has an idea. Cut to the bat signal shining in the sky, and the crows just swarming the place with guns and helicopters, and somehow the crows got there way ahead of the police. There's not a single cop in sight, even though the bat signal is on the roof of police headquarters. You figure it out. In 20 episodes, I'm pretty sure this is the only time the bat signal has ever garnered a reaction like this. Except for one time when the police lit it up as a publicity stunt to prove that they didn't hate lesbians. Oh yeah, that happened. Every other time the bat signal was lit up, there was no one there. Just Batwoman and the person who lit the signal. No one else. Not cops, not crows, not the press. Nobody. But now, for no other reason than because the plot says so, someone shines the signal in the sky, and all of a sudden it draws people like ants to a fucking picnic. Continuity is dead. So the crows burst in there armed to the teeth, and it turns out Mary's the one who lit the signal. They start to strong-arm her, even though she didn't do anything wrong or break any laws that they know about. But remember, as far as the crows are concerned, turning on the bat signal is a killable offense now. And sure enough, Jacob is pissed that Mary almost got her head blown off because that's what the crows went up there to do. And Jacob being Jacob, he thinks this is Batwoman's fault. Okay, so the writers are doing everything they can think of to vilify Jacob as much as they possibly can in this situation. But when you have him coming off as so over-the-top irrational that he's bending logic and common sense over the table, telling the law to kick rocks, still going with this pretense that the crows can murder whoever the hell they want with no repercussions, and not a single character ever points out how none of this makes any goddamn sense whatsoever, you haven't made Jacob look like shit. You've just made yourselves look like shit. So Mary pleads with Jacob to put his vendetta aside and work with Batwoman because she's the bestest ever and God's gift to crime fighting, and it might be good for the crows to work with someone that the city actually likes. Shock of all shocks, this does not improve Jacob's mood. And neither does Mary handing him a phone and telling him to talk to Batwoman himself. So then Batwoman shows up in person and offers Jacob a truce because she can't beat Titan on her own. She actually admits this. And no, I couldn't believe it either. She's beaten multiple dangerous criminals at once without breaking a sweat I don't know how many times, but a college football jock with a machete is too much for her to handle. As much as I appreciate Kate finally admitting that she needs help, her doing it for such a goddamn ridiculous reason is not helping this episode's case. Then Jacob just agrees to this, and they shake hands. I'm sure this alliance won't fall apart faster than a story outline in the Batwoman writer's room at all. I know it's hardly the stupidest thing in this scene, but why exactly did Mary have to sneak into the GCPD and light the bat signal just to talk to Jacob? He is her stepdad. I mean, it's not like she doesn't know where he lives, where he works, or what his phone number is. Couldn't she have just had dinner with him or something and talked to him that way? Sure, she could. But if she'd done that, then the writers couldn't have manufactured this bullshit scenario where the crows almost blow Mary's head off for turning on a light, and when they're trying to make Jacob the strawmaniest straw man who ever strawmanned, that just won't do. So the news lady interviews the former GU coach, and he wants Titan to show up on the field so he can apologize, even though it's not clear what, if anything, he did wrong, besides being a white male. I'm assuming he forced the doctor to fake the brain scans or something, but I don't think the episode ever tells us that. This is, of course, a trap to lure Titan out. And it's downright hysterical how obvious they're being about it. The crows are stationed all over this empty stadium, not even trying to hide, they're just standing out in the open like jackasses. So it's not much of a surprise at all when Titan gets the jump on these chuckleheads and starts picking them off, even though he literally brought a knife to a gunfight. Oh, and by the way, once again, no police anywhere. I guess they all had the day off or something. This is the funniest part of the episode easily, for no other reason than it makes the crows look like absolute fucking buffoons. Up until now, Titan has been portrayed as a raving, mindless, brutish thug, and yet he's still lucid enough to cut the power and strategically take the crows down one by one, and like fucking amateur hour, these incompetent clowns just let it happen. So Batwoman fights Titan again, and he beats her again, which is just fantastic. Thank you, episode, for doing that. But she tries to get through to him by parroting all that stuff his brother said about how he's really a good person and blah blah blah. And this is working, but then all the crows that he didn't butcher with a machete pump him full of bullets, so it doesn't really matter. And I hope you're sitting down for this one. Turns out that when Jacob shook Batwoman's hand and agreed to work with her, he was untrustworthy. Shocking, I know. So Jacob and all the remaining crows surround Batwoman. They empty their guns at her, trying to put her down execution style, which, for reasons that remain completely unexplained to this day, the crows seem to have the legal authority to do, but they're all idiots, so not a single one of them aims for the unprotected part of her face, and because the writers have decided that Kate is indestructible again all of a sudden, she doesn't even feel the bullets, and she f***s out of there. Long story short, just in case the crazed, murderous football player wasn't enough to let the audience know how the writers feel about toxic masculinity, they decided to double down on that with Jacob to the point of madness. Also, there was this subplot about Jacob mobilizing every crow he had for this mission except Sophie and Julia because he didn't trust Sophie not to help Batwoman, even though the whole reason he gave Sophie her job back in the first place was because he decided that he could trust her, but now he doesn't again. So that's another retcon to add to the list, if anyone's even still counting. And they go to the stadium anyway, of course, but they're too late to do anything. Later, there's some nonsense about Sophie being terrified to be in a relationship with a woman, even though she was in a relationship with Kate for years. And then Julia mentions that the rifle's boss, who she betrayed and pissed off, left pictures of the two of them at Julia's hotel. Oh no, this wonderful new LGBT romance is in danger. How awful. Anyway, cut to Alice and Mouse for a scene that isn't one of the stupidest things ever put on television. Alice is burning her copy of Alice in Wonderland because it connects them to their trauma, so destroying it breaks the attachment and sets them free or whatever. Mouse is happy, thinks the nightmare is over and they can finally move on, and Alice is getting emotional too because she just poisoned Mouse. So Alice is killing Mouse because he made her choose, and the second a man tried to do that to a woman, you knew he was done for. So Mouse dies, Alice cries, and if you disregard the hokey dialogue and the fact that they telegraphed the living crap out of this before Alice did it, this was a good scene. The actors did really well, Rachel Skarsten killed it as always, and they were actually able to create a very rare, poignant moment here. Because regardless of how horribly written the characters on this show are, one of the very few constants that hasn't been twisted into a pretzel by the writers retconning things right and left is that Alice and Mouse have been very loyal to each other and care about each other in their own twisted way. So Alice chooses revenge over her surrogate brother, but it breaks her heart to do it. So the emotion in this scene feels genuine, as opposed to Kate's emotion over Jacob's betrayal, which just feels like complete bullshit. Scenes like this are why I keep saying that Alice/Rachel Skarsten is the one redeeming thing about this show. Because even though she's the villain who does horrible things, she's far and away a more genuine, complex, sympathetic, and likable character than Kate/Ruby Rose could ever hope to be. So back in Bruce's office, Kate is attempting to convey hurt feelings about Jacob screwing her over and trying to kill her like a rabid animal, but Ruby Rose is a robot that can't process human emotions, so this doesn't go over terribly well. I always pictured coming out to him as Batwoman one day. Really? Always? Because this is the first I'm hearing about it. And she keeps trying to cry as she blathers on about how his betrayal hurt 1,000,000 times worse than those bullets, and none of this rings true at all. This is all predicated on Kate and Jacob's complicated relationship. But I honestly have trouble remembering the last time they even shared a scene together. I don't think they've had one since they locked Alice up in Arkham. They didn't have one scene together when Jacob was released from prison after almost dying from getting stabbed in the gut. We never even saw Kate's reaction to that. And there's plenty of other examples, too, of the show having a chance to make this relationship a priority that the writers just passed on. They've been playing fast and loose with the Kate-Jacob dynamic since day one. Jacob's probably interacted more with Sophie than Kate. To really sell this, you needed Kate's relationship with her dad to have been presented in some kind of consistent way that has just not been done. And this is coming on the heels of Jacob cranking his vendetta against Batwoman up to 11 from out of nowhere, and the only explanation we ever get for that is that Jacob blames her for his wife's killer being back on the street. His wife, the arsonist and attempted murderer, who he was divorcing, by the way, for falsifying DNA evidence to make him think his daughter was dead when she was really still alive. That wife. Are you kidding me? We never got the sense that he gave one single shit when Catherine was killed. I don't remember them even showing his reaction to learning she was dead. But now he's so irate about her killer being free that he turns into a crazy person and wants to blast Batwoman into confetti for it? Do you see how f***ed up this situation is? Nothing about this story was earned in any way, shape, or form. The writers contrived the shit out of absolutely everything, so the only emotion you feel during this whole thing is relief when this garbage scene finally comes to an end, and not nearly soon enough. But before it ends, Luke walks in, and guess what, guys? Guess what? He destroyed the Kryptonite by smashing it. Mary was right all along. The science guy thought the idea of smashing the Kryptonite was stupid. Well, good thing there was a woman around to set him straight and get shit done when he couldn't, am I right? That'll teach Luke for having a penis. Then Kate finally remembers that episode 19 is a thing, and she's supposed to trust Luke more now or something, so she shows Luke and Mary the Kryptonite that she was saving from the big crossover. They both want to destroy it, but Kate asks them to trust her until she can talk to Kara. And that I like. Keeping Kryptonite around as an insurance policy is something that Batman would do, so that makes sense. And all they have to do is put it in the Batcave so no one will ever find it. But oh wait, then the final scene happens, where Alice fits Tommy for a new ass mask that makes him look exactly like Bruce Wayne. I don't know how he plans to copy Bruce's voice, because that superpower died with Mouse, but looks like Tommy's just gonna walk into the Wayne building, take the Kryptonite, and if history is any indication, shit on Bruce even more than the show has already. But not this year he won't, because on that note, this season of Batwoman is officially done. Over. Finished. And not a single f***ing second too soon. What the f*** was this? After 20 episodes of Kate being an unstoppable fighting machine that practically no one could even hope to match up to, the first villain outside of Alice to really hand Kate her ass is just some roided up football player? That would have been hilarious if it wasn't so pathetic. This is such a weird episode. After an entire season of Kate being one of the most insufferable, woke, feminist, SJW, garbage tier characters to ever appear on television, it looked like the writers had chosen the hill they wanted to die on and nothing was going to stop them. And yet this week, they strangely walked back on a lot of that stuff. Hence why in this one, Kate loses multiple fights, gets injured, admits that she needs help, is sure that she can trust Jacob and then looks like an idiot for doing so. These are all good things if the intention was to turn Kate into an actual character. But does anyone believe for 1 second that that's what's going on here? At best, this was a last-minute, half-assed attempt to make Kate seem more sympathetic, but we're way past the point where that could have made a difference. And it comes at the same time as the writers transparently demonizing Jacob to such an extent that it's pretty clear they only wanted to make Kate look more likable by making Jacob look like the biggest irrational asshole possible. Had I known what was coming, I would have told them not to bother. Nothing is going to make Kate a better character at this point. that ship sailed, hit the iceberg, and sank to the bottom of the Mariana Trench. And then when you factor in all the plot holes, the constant retcons, the character discontinuity, not to mention the ridiculous anti-male agenda, you can sum up this episode the same way you sum up the entire season. It's shit. And with that, at long last, we close the book on Batwoman Season 1, and my God, what an absolute catastrophe of television. How on earth did this happen? In the right hands, a Batwoman series could have worked. If you'd had some decent writers with their heads screwed on straight and a lead whose acting talent wasn't routinely eclipsed by a used wad of toilet paper, this could have been a different show. But that's not what was important to these people. Instead, what we got was one of the worst written trash fires I've seen in any medium, a lead actress so hilariously ill-equipped to carry a TV series you'd think the casting director was just trolling everybody, and identity politics so overblown it's as if the entire show from day one was made just to piss off the people the show should have been made for in the first place. Well, mission accomplished. I honestly didn't think the Arrowverse could get worse than The Flash and Legends of Tomorrow. This show proved me wrong. Batwoman has set a new low for not only comic book shows, but for the CW in general. Let it burn. The fact that some brain trust at the network even greenlit this direct to begin with, much less renewed it for a second season, is a sign that this network just needs to be put out of its misery. Thank Christ this season is over. I can't even put into words how agonizing watching this trash has been. If anyone has earned a break from the Arrowverse, it's me. Kate Kane, Batwoman, and to you, Greg Berlanti, the man ultimately responsible for the 20 hours of my fucking life that I'll never get back. I have just one last thing to say. Wait a damn minute! Stargirl is a thing now?